everyone. Thank you for joining us. This webinar on autism is presented to you by brightbot.com, where I would ask for you guys to please join the autism support group. It's totally free and super important to spread awareness, because the bigger we can make our community, the more people are likely to get the help that they need. I would just like to give a little disclaimer that I'm not a doctor. I'm just sharing my experience. And also during the presentation, we're going to be muting everyone, but we're only doing this to eliminate outside noise. But once we're done, we'll take any questions that you guys might have. And if you remember a question after the webinar is over, or if you happen to think of another question, you can always head to the support group on autism, the autism support group on brightbot.com, and record a video of yourself with whatever question it is that you might have, and someone will respond to your question with a video. So today I will be talking about floor time therapy as an intervention for those with autism. And first, we'll just be going over what floor time therapy is. So we'll talk about where it started. So in the 1980s, two child psychologists named Dr. Greenspan and Dr. Wider, they derived floor time therapy from a model that they like to call the developmental individual difference relationship-based model. Basically, what that long-term means is that they believe that by paying attention to what a child is interested in, they'll be more curious, and it'll increase their creativity and drive to communicate with others. So these two doctors conducted a study with a child, firstly in 2003, who was on the autism spectrum, and he had 3 years of this floor time therapy, and over that time he had 6 daily floor time sessions. So it does seem pretty intense, but it showed a lot of improvement. And they concluded that floor time helps with children with autism. And also other studies in Canada and Thailand have also shown and concluded, even in Canada, that this type of therapy does help improve the emotional, it improves emotional development, and it reduces autism's core symptoms. So next we'll talk about basically what the belief is that adults, by tuning into what children are interested in and engaging in literally their play sessions, that it helps foster their development and build on their strengths that they already have. So it challenges children with autism to push themselves to their full potential. What they believed when they started this program is that this type of therapy develops who they are, and instead of what their diagnosis says about them. So as you can literally tell by the name floor time therapy, it involves parents using their time with their children, and they literally get on the floor and engage with the activities that their child enjoys. So say a child is playing, like as you can see in pictures, say a child is playing with some blocks and the parent is mimicking them. It's very child-directed, which I will expand upon. And basically the parents teach their child how to direct their own complex interactions, not only with them, but with other people. And it's very important because a major issue with children with autism is the pragmatics. So they can't really make eye contact, and they don't focus on joint attention, which is, these are very important milestones for children to develop from a very young age. As an infant, eye contact, all those things are very important for verbal and nonverbal communication development. So a lot of children with autism lack this. So as you can already see by just the parent reinforcing this communication, this back and forth, and fostering it on a day-to-day basis, these children will improve in this communication, and they'll be able to carry it over into their lives. Well, that is really the goal. So this program helps children reach 6 developmental milestones that are necessary for emotional and intellectual growth, which are self-regulation, intimacy, two-way communication, complex communication, and emotional ideas and emotional thinking. So it doesn't only target one aspect of whatever deficit they may be having. So it doesn't only target speech or their motor or cognitive skills by themselves. However, it addresses all these areas through its focus on emotional development, which is really the basis for all of those skills if you think about it. So next we'll be talking about how exactly floor time works. So first, of course, it has to begin with an assessment. You can't just jump into a therapy program without assessing someone's strengths and their weaknesses. So that's exactly what this does, since as you guys might know, or if you don't even know, not every person with autism is the same. So each child will have their different challenges, and each child will have their different strengths. So the assessment, well, it helps to give this evaluation so that they know where to begin. They kind of have a baseline, and they have two aspects for the assessment. So it involves, one, the developmental questionnaire, which focuses on emotional and intellectual abilities. So it just, focuses on how they interact with others and how they think and perceive their world. And then also the sensory processing questionnaire, which is very important, especially for children with autism, because it focuses on how they process and regulate what they hear, touch, smell, taste, and how they move. And the assessment aspect of the floor time therapy is it's straightforward, and it's very easy for the children to answer the questions. And it also includes a chart, so to track progress over time, to see what might be working, what might not be working, what could use adjustment. And so it's very important to track progress over time. So the actual intervention itself will usually take place in a calm environment. So at first, it'll probably take place in a professional setting, such as a clinic, where the therapist is meeting with the parent and the child and probably administering the therapy themselves, but they're also trying to teach it to the parents so they can carry it over into their everyday lives, which is very important because it's all about functionality. What you learn in therapy should also be applied in your own home, and that's basically what the parents are encouraged to do. And the formal treatment sessions at the start, they do range from 2 to 5 hours a day. So like I said, because that includes not only training for the child, but the parents and whoever interacts with the child. And so families are, again, encouraged to use these principles in their everyday lives. And sessions, basically, they emphasize back and forth play interactions. So that establishes, as I previously mentioned, joint attention, engagement, and problem solving. And parents and the therapist help the child to maintain focus. And this helps sharpen their interactions and their logical thinking. So for example, if it might begin with the child in a room of toys, and they'll start tapping a toy truck or something, and the parent will usually try to engage with them and focus on them and try to ask them maybe what they're doing, and also do the same thing. And they'll doing this might encourage, it encourages the interaction, encourages not only their own interaction, but for the child to play back with them. And like I said, you could add language to the game, so it might not just be playing with the toys with them. You could talk to them about what they're doing, ask them what they want to do next. It's very child-directed, and the child is in control most of the time. So it's very different compared to traditional therapy techniques, because usually it'll be the child sitting across from a therapist, and it'll be very structured, so the child has to listen to what the therapist is saying, and they'll have to repeat after them. Or other therapy methods, as we'll talk about later, are different from this one. So as you can see, it's not very traditional, but it offers the child to feel like they're playing, but at the same time, they're gaining all of these benefits. So although this therapy technique will differ, but for any child, it will include following the child's lead. So entering their world and really putting yourself on their level. You have to think the way that they think and actually get on the floor with them. So they feel like they're playing with someone maybe their own age. And it's just very important to build that trust and kind of relationship with children with autism. And so basically you also have to challenge them to be creative and spontaneous. So ask them questions about what they want to do next or what they want to play with. We'll see in a video soon a therapist doing exactly that. And you also basically want to expand the action and the interaction to include all or most of the senses and motor skills, as well as different emotions, because this helps them get a comprehensive therapy approach, and it just focuses on everything that they might be lacking in, and it's supposed to help strengthen it. And basically this helps them practice basic thinking skills, engaging with others, interacting, symbolic thinking, and logical thinking. And basically, in order to master these skills and all these, you need to use all of the senses, emotions, and motor skills, which is exactly what this type of therapy taps into. And with this kind of intervention, the Greenspan floor time approach works towards the overall outcome is that they'll deepen relationships with others, not only their parents, but maybe their therapists, or they'll make more social relationships. And it'll also strengthen their communications, because they're engaged in a lot of spontaneous play. So they're not really maybe learning a structured way of doing things, but they're learning how to think for themselves and maybe even respond, and thinking all different kinds of situations that they're not really structured, or it doesn't get really repetitive because it's always something different. And they're also expanding the way they think and about the world and the way that they're learning and taking in information. And it's also fostering better behavior as well. So the goal is for floor time to give them the necessary skills to progress in school and life, and to also be independent on their own. Now, like I said, we can compare it to other popular interventions such as ABA, which is applied behavior analysis. And if you don't know what that is, it's a therapy approach that involves a stimulus, a response, and a reward. So it's a very reward-based system, and it's very repetitive. And it's thought to be, well, it's very popular because it does work with children with autism. It's that repetitive nature that they do have within them. So it's just been something that's been applied to therapy, and it's seen a lot of success. But the way floor time differs is that it's very child-directed. So the child takes the lead in all of the interactions. Although there is an adult in the picture, they're basically following their lead to see where the child is going and what they're doing, and how they can interact with them in that way to improve the way that they're communicating with other people. So again, it's really improving the social aspect, which is like the core issue of autism, really, and that really impedes a lot of their interactions with people in their lives. And then what could be a possible con to this type of therapy? Again, every child with autism isn't the same, so it might not work for someone. It might not work for a child that maybe might not have the attention to or even desire to play with toys. So again, that's really where the assessment comes in to see if it's even suitable for a child. And then I also found that it can be used as an alternative to therapy approaches such as ABA, or can be used as a supplement. So it could be something that you also work on in addition to ABA. I've seen it used in these various ways. And basically, well, comparing it to ABA even more is that they both work towards improving behavior. However, ABA, again, it's more behavior-based, so it's really that stimulus, response, and reward. So it's very rigid and repetitive, whereas this is more spontaneous, more relaxed even. Some people might find it a better alternative. And yeah, so again, the ABA is also directed by therapists and family member, but this really gives a child more freedom to explore the world around them. And it's just being reinforced by their caregiver or their therapist that's, playing into what they're doing and encouraging them to be more spontaneous and learn about their world in a different way. So I have a video that I wanted to show you an example of floor time therapy, and this is the first time I'm trying something like this, so I just want to see if it works. Are you able to see this? Okay.
Oh, Lucy, just kind of see what's his enjoyment. What's he getting a kick out? He's getting a kick out.
Yeah.
Wow. Lots of blue.
Oh.
Boy. Zen. Milo. Zen. Yeah. Do you see anything that's striking you here that's helping?
Yeah, your reactions to what he's doing, you're showing great interest, and he's loving that.
Yeah.
He's loving that you're interested in what he's doing.
You do it.
It's great.
What's going on? Zen! Milo! So you don't have to draw.
So as you can see, like she said, what can you notice that he's enjoying about it? And she's watching therapists engage with the child, and she's noticing that she's showing interest, and that you could see like the positive.
Do you want these?
You can see the positive look on the child's face. Sorry.
Marcus is very.
So when you play into what the child is interested in and things that they like to do, such as, so he was painting, she said that she didn't even need to paint with him. She could just stand next to him and kind of be like his cheerleader and just say, oh, look what you're doing, like it's amazing. Or just say, oh, he loves coloring, this is what he loves doing. And then he turns around and he's like really happy about what he's doing, and he gets the same positive response from the therapist to make the same exact face at him. So that only continues to facilitate like he's exploring, he's just playing with markers and drawing something, but the feedback that he's getting is really enforcing his communication is in him that, like, if I'm looking at somebody that's playing and enjoying the same things that I do, I get a positive response and he reacts positively. So just to sum everything that we've talked about, floor time basically promotes the belief that adults, when they tune into children's interests, it helps build on their strengths and facilitate communication. And basically what it involves is therapists and parents engaging in the child's activities that they enjoy playing with. So they enter the games, they interact with them, they follow the lead, and parents are taught how to do this by the therapist on a daily basis. And it basically works on improving self-regulation, intimacy, two-way communication, complex communication, emotional ideas, and emotional thinking. And once again, although assessment will differ from child to child, at the core, this therapy includes following the child's lead, teaching them to be creative and spontaneous, and expanding the action and interaction to include all of the senses as well as different emotions, so they can really improve those motor skills and their social and communication skills. And again, it works towards deepening relationships. Overall, the outcome to deepen relationships, improve their communications with other people, not only those in their immediate environment, but those in their everyday lives, which is the ultimate goal. And its goal is to also expand thinking and learning and fostering better behavior. And once again, it offers either a supplement or an alternative approach to ABA and other therapy methods. So before we take questions from you guys, I would like to know what you guys think of. What do you think about floor time therapy? Is it something that you've ever heard of before, or something that you might consider if you say, you know, somebody that has autism? Do you think it's something that you would recommend?
I didn't understand really what made the kid autistic. He looked like a normal kid to me who was just happy to be painting. So how would you even know when you want to how would you even know whether a child's a good candidate for it?
Well, they use the assessment, so they assess their emotional. It's not just for children with autism, but what I've seen that it was popularly used with children with autism, and is gearing more towards that. But when it was initially developed, it was children with any developmental disabilities. But you would basically, again, you would do the assessment and do like their emotional, what they're lacking, and how that can be potentially improved by the therapy. If it's something that it can even be worked on by the therapy. Like the premise of it is very play-based. And like you said, it looks like any child be playing, but that's something that might work for a child with autism if they're very, if it's something that you can see through the assessment that they're interested in doing and that they're engaging well in, then you can pursue the further therapy approach.
Yeah, I think it's really, really nice. I mean, anytime a person can spend quality one-on-one time with a child, I mean, that's a very valuable thing.
Yes, of course. I think that's like the biggest part of it and super cool.
Yeah, Nadine, it looked like there was a lot of fun involved about the child and the therapist. One thing I was wondering about though is, would a therapist concentrate on one particular method like ABA or floor time, or would they use it depending on what they thought the child needed?
Well, there are different, usually a therapist that does ABA is not going to do floor time, because like from what I've seen, there's a lot of disagreement. Like I've even met people who think that like floor time is the better option for children, because it's not like drilling a child to sit in a seat and making them repeat all these things, giving them a reward. Like this is not my own opinion, but some people think that it's kind of treating them like animals, like using the ABA approach. So, but generally people who are very strong and for ABA will say, no, that's not the case. It has shown a lot of improvement with children with autism. So like I said, you're not going to find one therapist who does both, because usually someone who does ABA will be set in their belief and their practice, and then somebody who believes in floor time will just practice that. They probably wouldn't do both, because what I've seen is that they're very two different conflicting views. Okay. So yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Hi. Sometimes autistic children tend to play by themselves. They don't want to engage. What if a child you want to try to introduce them to the floor method? Yeah, and you're sitting there and they're playing and whatever. And since it's child directed, would the adults initiate the play, or would they just sit and wait for the child to maybe, engage in some type of play or something? Have you ever had any experience with that?
Well, I personally don't have experience conducting floor time or like observing it. I've just seen it through videos and instruction that I've been taught about. And again, it's very tricky because children with autism, they do have that, there's that very like prevalent social piece where it's not something that they control how they want to be socially, like how they want to interact with others. And maybe they're not even interested in toys, so that might be something so floor time might really not be something that works for them. But generally, most children will have a toy or something that they like playing with, so you can try to initiate it. But then the whole thing of it is that you don't want it to be something that's very structured, and you don't want to force them into doing it if it's nothing that's for them. So the whole point of it is for it to be spontaneous and to improve their communication and for them to take control of the situation. And for the parents to just
you could just wait then, like, wait around, and if it's not going to happen, then you just wouldn't force it.
Yeah, so you can try to initiate it at first just to like get it started to see if maybe it's something that works for them, because like you said, the child might be in a corner and they might not be showing interest in playing with anything. But if you try to initiate it and you see that it's going somewhere, and then you kind of just leave it to them and you ask them maybe what they want to do, try to like get into the game that they're playing, or maybe maybe they're playing with a truck, maybe you could make you have another truck and you're kind of like bumping into it or something. You can just try to get a feel for if they might even be involved in this type of therapy, just to see if it would work in the future. And if they're open to it, then maybe it's not something that's going to work for them.
Okay, thank you.
Do you happen to know if floor time therapy is anything that like an autistic center would use, like for children, like how you can give children to an autistic center like while you're away so they can monitor them? Do you know if like floor time therapy is actively used by them?
I know that it is used by like speech therapists, and I've seen from videos that it is used in like these centers that you speak of. But again, you find out in advance if that's something they practice on their own, and usually like places will have it on their website if it's something that they engage in, but it would definitely be something you'd have to research in advance. I don't, like, from what I see, it's something that's used, but it's not as extremely popular as ABA. And I just think I personally think that it should be more used because, I mean, children like to play. It's in their nature, for most children, even if they have autism, they want to play with toys. So it's very smart to think that if you can get into that and improve their communication in that way. So I think it should definitely be used more, and you could totally ask in advance to see if that's something that they have there.
Nadine, your slide in the beginning, I just assumed that everything was floor level, but just looking at the video that we saw, it's something that has to be at their eye level, basically, because
you have to put it on their level. You see, like they were on their knees. Typically, children are on the floor, but yeah, you have to be like get on their, make them feel like they're playing with a child their age, like you're not even an adult anymore. Because if you're like towering over a child and you're just watching what they're doing and try to talk to them, it really makes a lot of sense. It's like you become a child yourself and you get on their level in whichever way you can. Like that child wanted to play on the easel with the marker, whatever he was doing, and the therapist was very smart. She got on her knees and she, like, because once the child turned around and looked at her to see her response, he could see her face, and they made that what they call like joint attention, and they were engaged, which is something that's often very hard to get with children with autism.
I have a question. It said that one of the 6 aims was emotional thinking. Why? Number one, why is it important to try to aim for emotional thinking? What is emotional thinking? And I always thought that they have no problem thinking. It's just a problem communicating. So can you try to explain that, please?
Well, yeah. From my understanding, it's just the way that they think about their emotions. Maybe they're not like really aware of what they enjoy. Like you could see the joy on his face. Maybe from my understanding, what I want to say is that like when you engage with other people and you see their facial expressions, which is often hard, like children with autism maybe have like flat affect. They don't really show their emotions a lot. So this help to show them like positive emotions and maybe like lessen negative emotions. So it gets them thinking that maybe when I do this, or like when I interact with someone, it could get me, like it makes me happy, or I get joy from this kind of interaction. That's how I understood it when I was reading up about it. So it gets them to think about the range of emotions are important for communicating with other people on a day-to-day basis and just understanding yourself and being independent. And it also ties into like self-regulation, because children with autism have a problem with that. Like they can't really like maybe calm them down all the time. So if you get to thinking about like it kind of ties into that, so it helps them realize what makes them happy, or like positive interactions with people. So I think all tie in together in that way.
The floor time therapy, actually, it looks like something that you could get a lot more, say, family members involved with, because it seems like it's just more almost fun-based.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, is very play-based. And part of the therapy in that program includes like not only just the mom and dad, but whoever the caregivers are or whoever the family members are. That's why it seemed intense, that it said that it was like therapy could last from like 2 to 5 hours a day, because it's about the child. Because if you want a successful therapy approach, you need to get everyone involved. And it's important because like maybe parents don't even think that they can improve their child's life in such a way. And you don't even need to like be part of this program officially to just understand like any kind of parent that playing with their child and getting on their level and communicating with them starts that, like builds that type of communication like from your family, and they can carry it on to the other aspects of their life, school, with friends, and it really improves their lives. I just think it's so cool, but it hasn't, I mean, it's very, I don't want to say underused, but it's not as popular as ABA, and I can understand why, because ABA is very like, it's very enforced, and it's usually what people think of or what is suggested to them when they have a child with autism that needs therapy. So it's very interesting, and I think more awareness should be spread about different therapy approaches like this one. So what do you guys think? Would floor time therapy be something that you would recommend based on what you've learned?
Most definitely. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, most definitely, yeah.
Oh, what makes you say that?
Because it's fun time with the kids. And like you guys were saying before, you get everybody involved, it's down to their level.
Mm-hmm.
And they think they're playing. You know, it to them it seems as though it's a big game because everybody's involved.
Yeah.
The interaction.
And they're learning too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so too. I would agree. And it's just, I personally think that it's just like a fun way to make it, they don't even realize that they're getting all these different benefits because it just feels like a game to them, but this is what they're really getting out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems like something that a layperson would be able to handle and not have to think that they have to be a therapist to do it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I think so too. I think it's just, it takes away, like, there's really no rules when you think about it. There's only like an idea of what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it, but possibilities are endless and it really depends on the child. So that's the whole thing, spontaneous, and it can be, and if it's spontaneous, you don't have to worry about the rules or like thinking, did I follow a step or did they respond in the correct way and do I have to give them a reward for what they did? With this, it's just like the possibilities are endless and you can be carried over anywhere, I think.
Yeah,
go ahead. Could this also be applied to just not only, because we're just talking about toys, what about maybe, you know, in the kitchen, you know, maybe doing something in the kitchen and helping in the kitchen, maybe outside, or, you know, working with plants or something that could be, wouldn't be a place as such, but it could fall in almost the same category.
Yeah, definitely. And usually, like what I've seen is that they start with this play base, and usually in kids as they get older, they're not always going to be on the floor and playing. But the thing is that you gauge into the children's interests and you continue this as they get older. And you think, say they're interested in cooking, then you don't have to be on the floor anymore, but you could make even if a child is like 5 or 6, you could still make a game out of like cooking or planting something in the garden, it can definitely be used as they get older as well, and in different situations.
Okay.
And I can see grandparents being involved in this also.
Yes.
Teaching them how to do little things like that, and the kids getting involved and things like that with them.
Yeah,
Sometimes the grandparents probably have no idea how to even react, the mom and dad and the siblings, yes, but I think.
Yeah, it can be very rigid. Like, it could be very hard, like, with all the different kinds of communication out there. Something like this is very simple. Everyone, if you've been a parent, you know how to play with a child. And more often than not, I know that I was raised by my grandparents. So a lot of children, and that's still a very common thing, children are dropped off to their grandparents for a couple of hours while their parents go out or run errands or something. So it's something that can definitely be applied and used by anyone, which I like about it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for all of your questions. And if you think of anything else that you want to say, please remember that you can always go to the Autism Support Group and record a video of yourself, and somebody will get back to you with the video as well. I had a lot of fun. I look forward to the next time. I'll be seeing you guys. Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you.